Welcome to the Rewarding Property Decisions Best of Summer Series. The countdown is back again this summer while we enjoy our summer break. Coming in at number 3 is the ever-popular Q&O format. This episode was hosted by my colleagues Jordan and Brenton. They were happy to answer some great questions from our listeners, so I hope you enjoy. Investing in property makes sense. Investing in the right property takes knowledge. Welcome to the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. I'm Jared McCabe, Director of Wakelin Property Advisory. Join me for expert insights into the fundamentals, trends and opportunities to help you create long-term wealth through smart property decisions.
Hello and welcome to episode 102 of Rewarding Property Decisions. Jared's away this week, so responsibility for this week's episode falls to me, Jordan Telfer, and my colleague, Brenton Potter.
Hey Jordan.
How are you, BP?
Good, how are you?
Good. We thought we'd revert to an occasional podcast theme, and that's our question and opinion. Given that I wouldn't say been inundated, but we've had a number of questions put to us, good questions put to us by clients in recent weeks, and also listeners to the podcast. And that might be a function of the Melbourne market just starting to get a little bit of a spark to it, and people's thoughts are, we're finding, turning to all things property related. So there've been some good ones that have come in, and we thought we'd just run through as many as we can in the time we've got. And hopefully these will be of interest. So I think first things first, BP, we'll run with one from Daniel from Ascot Vale.
Yep.
And his question to us was, what should I focus on during a final inspection before settlement?
Yeah.
Which is a good one. It's one thing that a lot of people don't give much thought to during a purchase. There's an entitlement to an inspection, a pre-settlement inspection before you take hold of the keys and hold of the property at settlement, and there are certain things that do need to be considered. So I'll let you run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jordan. I mean, I think the most important part for the pre-settlement inspection for purchases is the property in the same condition that it was on the date of sale, whether that was at auction or a private sale that I bought it. So,
and that's the purpose of it, isn't it? It's just to ensure, that the client or the purchaser is actually is buying what they thought they were, because settlement can be anything from 30 days, 60, 90, as much as 120.
Yeah, we just did one the other day, which was a 6-month settlement that worked out for both sides. But and then it's about, you're entitled to a pre-settlement inspection 7 days prior to settlement. I would always recommend clients review or get the appliances checked. So if utilities are on, then that involves cooktops and electricity and lights, for example.
That's assuming, of course, that those appliances were in working order, and that's when at the date of purchase. So that's something that should be checked. Absolutely.
Yeah. So. And then on that front as well, I mean, there's a fine balance between getting your phone charger and walking around to every power point in each room and testing if it works. But as you said, the appliances that we're looking at, you want to make sure you've tested them out before, unless we're buying a brand new house with brand new appliances in them as well.
Yeah. So, what I tend to do if I'm doing this on behalf of clients, particularly our clients who we've purchased for that might be interstate or overseas and can't actually get to the pre-settlement inspection, I'll take out with me a copy of the particulars of sale page of the contract. So that will list the chattels that are to remain.
Yeah. We
don't want to get all the way out to the property and find that, hang on a second, the dishwasher's missing. Was that an exclusion of the chattels, or has the owner taken that out? And it should have remained.
It's a very good point.
And sometimes it can be a bit of a grey area. Dishwashers, sometimes people view that as a piece of furniture that they pull out. It's not plumbed in as such, you can just pull it out. So you've got to keep an eye on that. That's probably the one appliance that if you're going to come a cropper. Of course, you want to make sure too that there's been no significant change to the property, in that if there's been 3 or 4 months that have elapsed since purchase and it's vacant when at purchase, very unusual. Never had this situation myself, but you just never know. If there's been a cracked tile, terracotta tile, water's come in, and over those 3 or 4 months, particularly over winter, has it damaged the ceiling? Is there a bow in the ceiling in the living room that has just emerged? And so I suppose that a reference back to the photographs at the online advertising at the time of purchase is very handy as well to substantiate the condition of the property at purchase.
I
In
guess
terms of timing,
yeah.
just to finish on this one,
Yep.
timing, we've got some views as to when that should be done.
Yeah, I mean, you've got within 7 days before settlement. You don't want to be leaving it to the last day in case there are, touch wood, there's not. But if there are any concerns, you want to be having a discussion with your solicitor about that. If you leave it to the
Delaying
last day,
settlement.
it then delays settlement, can cause other costs, or other costs can be involved. Then, so really, normally that 4 or 3 days before settlement, we like probably at a minimum to get through and inspect, and as we do it for clients as well, if they're interstate or overseas, we assist with obviously our correspondence, but also taking a walkthrough video for reference for the client.
Yeah, and I think you want to get that sweet spot in terms of timing. You're entitled to it 7 days before, but don't walk through on the 7th day, because as unusual as it is, as unlikely as it is, most people are very, very good. You probably want to give people, minimise the opportunity for people to strip the property out close to the date of settlement. So you do it on the 7th day, they've got pretty much a week to, if they're that way inclined, to be stripping the appliances out. You settle, you get the keys, you walk in, the money's already transferred. It's very difficult then to chase that back up. And there could be something as simple as, well, in those 7 days, you never know, a branch of a tree could fall on the roof. So there's a sweet spot there. So I'm hoping that, Daniel, that answers your question. And we'll move on to Liam from Sydney, actually. And Liam asks, or it says, in one of your podcasts, you mentioned buying a property typical of that area. Not sure which podcast Liam was referencing there, but I'm sure that, back in the library there would be, we'd have covered that. And goes on to ask, why is this so important? There's no specifics there from Liam's question, but we can certainly reference that anyway. Kick it off, mate. We've had a chat about this.
Yeah, I think, in terms of the question there, it's around what's typical in one suburb may not be, or acceptable, I guess, for the buying standards, may not be for other suburbs and buying markets. So, for an example, if we're focusing on inner city terrace homes, which we do quite a bit for investment, I know that if I'm in North Carlton, probably the buying expectation is, if I'm buying an inner city terrace home in North Carlton, it would be the construction would be brick.
And just for the reference here, Liam being from Sydney, may or may not know the geography of Melbourne, North Carlton being a city fringe suburb, directly north of the city, characterised by predominantly Victorian era, brick Victorian era terrace homes, mostly single level, some double storey. It's quite a premium suburb in Melbourne. And yes, there's mostly they're brick. Every now and again you do find some timber, weatherboards. Yeah.
So as compared to if you were to go a little bit further north, say around Thornbury, there's a little bit more of a mix of, you can get some brick terrace homes there, but also weatherboard ones too.
Yeah, nice
and the
mix.
buying market, it's not as much of an expectation that if I'm buying in that area, that I'm going to be buying a brick home, so to speak.
Yeah. So in those areas we tend to avoid those timber homes in those core inner suburban areas, those city fringe suburbs that tended to be, when they were developed, it was brick. As you said, there's some suburbs dotted throughout Melbourne, and some are traditionally or historically working class suburbs. Others, like Hawthorn, it's generally been a very, very prime suburb of eastern suburban Melbourne. You get a nice mixture of brick and timber.
You do.
And it's not an issue. And Kensington in the northwest is the same, brick and timber. There are always exceptions, and that's not to say that a suburb with predominantly brick, the odd timber home isn't going to work. Good example of one that sold in the last year or so in timber home in Alfred Crescent, in Fitzroy North, opposite Edinburgh Gardens, a named street. Funnily enough, there's a little timber home there. It sold. It met with competition and sold. There's always exceptions. But just as a rule, particularly when we're buying for investors and our investor clients, that is important. So that's probably what we were referring to there, Liam. Other elements of a property that might be regarded typical in one area or atypical in another would be...
like streetscape, for example.
Yeah.
That could be one. We always talk about and I'm mentioning the inner north again, but Brunswick, where you can get a bit of, some streets can be quite mixed in their streetscape. You can have, single front Victorian homes, contemporary townhouses, 1980s brick veneer homes, all on the one street.
Yeah.
And I think the buying market there,
It's accepting.
It's
It
accepting,
really, isn't it?
But if I was to potentially look at in a street, maybe in a part of Stonington in Melbourne southeast, that may not be as accepted in that part of town. Yeah, around Armidale. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably to that as well, we find that the expectations in those probably higher end parts of Melbourne might be for a central bathroom.
Yep.
And that's great if you can have a typical single-fronted cottage. If you've got bedroom, central bathroom, well, that's ideal. Bathroom at the back of areas like in South Yarra, Armidale, Paran, at the rear, say off the kitchen, that can be viewed a little harshly, I suppose. Whereas, again, in Brunswick is a good example, people don't batter an eyelid at that.
Yeah, I've noticed that with my open for inspection numbers and getting through. Certainly, it's a lot more accepted in that northern section, that inner northern section versus probably the southeast.
To have bathrooms at the rear and sometimes off the kitchen. So
Yeah.
so that's where it's horses for courses. It's knowing what's accepted in a particular suburb for a particular buying market at a particular budget, and trying to appeal to the widest possible market within that area. So we'll move on. We've probably got a few questions to run through here. Jenny from Albury asked, in your villa unit podcast, you briefly mentioned some suburbs that typically have quality villa units. Which areas would you consider the best and why? So being Melbourne based, we're from in a Melbourne context. So some of those suburbs that offer the best quality, if we're looking at it from particularly if we're putting the goggles on for working for our investor clients.
Yeah.
I would say eastern suburbs.
Yeah, in my experience, just with getting through a number of villa units, when we're talking higher quality or higher end, it's those eastern suburbs. So suburbs, for example, like Surrey Hills, Mont Albert, Camberwell. Yeah.
And when we say villa units, particularly different parts of the country might have a description for these types of property. They're
that's right, yeah.
Single level. They're sort of that quasi, not quite an apartment, not quite a house. So the better developments have lower numbers, so there might only be 4 or 6 within a block. Probably the more entry level villa units, they can be up as much as 12, 18, something like that.
Yeah, I remember some parts. Going through some blocks, it was a number of years ago, but around Glen Huntly and Carnegie and that part of town, sometimes some of those streets can have quite a number of units in there. And I remember meeting the agent at a property and just looking at the driveway, and the strip just to meet the agent was about 20 or 30 metres deep, just to get down to the actual unit that we were considering or looking at. So
going and going.
Yeah.
So that's again, scarcity comes back to it as well. So that's why we tend to concentrate on those inner eastern areas. The quality tends to be better. So when we say that, that's the floor plans. Courtyards tend to be a little bit more generous, typified by their car parking entitlements have garages rather than, if you're looking at
parking.
The angled undercover sort of squeezy carports up one side of the block. So it's probably applying the same sorts of that same sort of thinking and considerations as we would if it was a normal apartment or a house or something of the like. So it's wanting to be in close proximity to the sorts of features that people are looking for and value in that particular part of the world. So that's
another one which I can't remember if you just touched on as well, but in terms of the floor plan, like the proper entrance hall, separation from living and dining areas to the bedrooms versus
walking straight into the lounge room. Those sorts of things.
Or the bedrooms coming off the living zone because you're cramped for space there. So,
And probably getting back to Jenny's specific question, which areas would you consider the best and why? Inner Eastern, closer in as possible, because you do tend to find yourself closer to schools, parks, village shopping strips. Union Road, Surrey Hills is a good example. But and as Jared mentioned at some point a while ago, and I thought, you're right. Melbourne's train network, for instance, runs in a radial fashion. So you tend to find the further out you go, the further the distance is to a train station. as they sort of fan out from the city centre. So, for instance, Surrey Hills you've got very good proximity to train station. Go out another few k's, say into Burwood.
You can get some isolated pockets there.
You can get isolated, yeah. And you're just not as conveniently located to those attributes. So.
That's right. It depends on the purpose of the purchase, but we want to make sure we get that walkability score, that walking distance to the village and the cafes and shops, rail transport. We want to make sure we want to get that right, as well as the block that we're buying in as well.
Yeah. So I hope that helps there, Jenny. Now, if we look at a couple of other questions, Rosemary from Elwood. The question, I need to reduce the cost to sell my property. I'm considering not styling or cutting back on marketing. Which do you think is more important to do? So either style the property or make sure the usual marketing is spent.
It's an interesting one because, I think they're both important, but without marketing, it doesn't matter if you style your property.
You can style it all you like, but if people don't know about it, they're not going to get there. So So there's
various ways to that. I guess the two big platforms, Domain and REA, and the type of package that is involved with that. That's really important. But we have noticed, and again, this is probably specific to certain types of property, and depending on the market that or the audience that is going to potentially buy your property when marketing. Some agents are more now using social media, TikTok and Instagram to market properties.
And quite successfully.
Yeah, and that can be a cost-effective way to market your property.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. It's case by case, because I don't know if I had a 3 or 4 bedroom home in Ivanhoe, for example, that I'm going to just be marketing my property on TikTok or Instagram. I'm not sure how successful that would be.
Yeah, we've dipped our toe in the water with agents who have engaged on behalf of our clients to sell their properties, and particularly those first home buyer properties, flats and apartments. Certain age group are very much tuned into that. Others aren't as much, and the results have been really good. So that can be a cheaper way, if you were looking to cut back on your marketing, to maybe get the best bang for buck, so to speak. On the other side of things, though, with styling, if we're looking at that, how could you save money there? Well, interestingly enough, I've just come from a client's property today, met the stylist out there, and the client's going to move out for the duration of the campaign, which is great. So we've got free rein to get with the agent to be getting people through, prospective purchasers through. But the question was, she's got it's a lovely apartment, dual level apartment, furnished it. She's got furnished it really nicely. Doesn't need all the furniture in moving out, but what remains, can we keep some there, or does it all have to come out and then new styling furniture come in? And the stylist was great as well, and she looked at it and thought, well, no, the bed can remain. It's a nice bed. It's the right size for the room. And then perhaps just furnished, or put some throws and cushions and all the rest of it across there. Bring in some artwork to put on the wall. There's a dining table that's good for the space, but probably a bit over-furnished with about 8 chairs. So we'll remove some of those, thin some of those out. And that's going to reduce the cost for the client, because we don't have to have everything just going out, the client's furniture and everything come back in. So there's potentially ways of keeping some of your furniture there to minimise the cost. In the event that you're moving out, obviously stylists don't want you to use that furniture, and you wouldn't recommend it anyway. So that's a way of perhaps minimising it. If the furniture matches the property itself, the style, it's not cluttered, and in good enough condition, that's an opportunity as well. So you could probably do a bit of both. Just fiddle around with the costs of the marketing, fiddle around with the cost of the styling, still get the same result, hopefully, and try to save some money that way.
Yeah, and I think it's important, even doesn't matter what era of home you have. I think if you were with styling, it's about just giving it that lift, and for the particular buyers who are walking through to say, okay, well, this is what my potential furniture is going to look like in here.
It is important. Yeah. Homes without styling, that can look soulless, a bit cavernous, and sometimes a lot of the times you need to actually guide the purchaser, and so they don't have to use their imagination as to where the couch goes and does my bed fit and these sorts of things. So it seems a bit superfluous or a bit of a luxury to be spending that money, but it is very effective. You do notice the difference, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
A few more questions. Ari from Sydney. So we've got a few from New South Wales actually, which is interesting.
Probably seeing value in the market.
Yeah, that's true actually. I've identified an investment property near a large vacant block. How risky is it to buy a property not knowing what might be built next door? Well, yes, there's risk. There's always risk, and that risk is what goes up next door might be incongruous for the area. It might be a bit of an eyesore. More to the point, I suppose people are concerned about perhaps a multi-level property going up that will impact your privacy, overshadowing, those sorts of things. We come across this pretty regularly. Beppe, what would you suggest?
Yeah,
The
another thing in terms of, as you mentioned, overshadowing. How is that going to affect natural light into the rooms where this new development may be coming up? So, I mean, I'd always recommend where you can do your research with or speak to the local council. If you can find if there's plans there and approved plans, then absolutely that will give you a starting point. It does come down to personal taste. I mean, if I'm buying for myself personally and I see a vacant block, I would want to see plans and I would want to see a frame up at least before I would dip my toe in the water.
Yeah. To that point, I suppose it's the uncertainty that is usually that's more of an issue usually than what the finished product is. But look, if there's nothing, and it could be, and oftentimes you see this, a vacant block of land and it's been vacant for many, many years and nothing's happened. Well, right. It could still be vacant in 20 years' time, or unbeknownst to you when you're purchasing, the owner of that next door property in 2 weeks' time after you settle could then get the ball rolling to develop that site. You just don't know. So that's where the uncertainty kicks in. All you can do really, if there's no hints from council as to if there've been any plans that have been lodged, all you can do is probably look at it and try to get some clues as to what could go up. So what's in the street? Yeah. Are they predominantly single residences, or are there multi-unit sites, so perhaps townhouses that are over 2 or 3 levels, or 2 or 3 on the site? Does it allow for subdivision? If a site is, say, in a core in a suburban area and there might only be 5 or 6 metre frontage, well, you're not going to get multi-units or multi-dwelling developments go up there. So what's the size of the block? What's the zoning? What does that allow? As I said, precedent in the street.
And then from there, at least you've done as much research as you can, and then you can then make as much of an informed decision as possible. Based on what you've looked at, as you said, provision in the street, information you've received from council, and it depends on your appetite for risk after that.
Well, you might find you buy the property at a little bit cheaper because of that uncertainty that others in the market, and then if you've got money burning a hole in your pocket, buy the next door block of land yourself. It's got your tennis court and swimming pool on it, and problem solved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Couple more. Fiona from Sandringham, in Melbourne. I found a villa unit to purchase as an investment property. It ticks all the boxes, but has a bathroom centred between 2 bedrooms, so it can only be accessed through a bedroom. Is this a deal breaker? So I presume what Fiona's referring to there is circumstance where the one and only bathroom in the property is effectively an ensuite, and so you guests need to walk through the bedroom to access the bathroom facility.
Which isn't ideal, no.
Not ideal. It's accepted at a certain price point for particularly one-bedroom flats, so entry-level one-bedroom flats that are fairly small, so around about the 40 to 45 square metre mark. Well, sometimes that's just the way they're built, and that's accepted when it's a one-bedroom apartment. If it's a villa unit, so as we described before, a villa unit tend to be a bit bigger. They're usually 2 to 3 bedrooms, single level, small number on the block. That's unusual to find that a bathroom is only accessed through presumably the main bedroom.
It wouldn't be if there was a provision to add a second entrance point.
Off a hallway or something,
Then I don't think it would be a deal breaker for me. I mean, that could certainly be evaluate opportunity. But if we're in this instance, if we're assuming that there is, then it wouldn't be a deal breaker, and that's something that I'd certainly
You'd consider, wouldn't you?
consider.
Yeah, it
But
could be a fairly cheap way of adding some value and adding usability and functionality to the property. Otherwise, if that's not possible, look.
the only reason why you would, if it's not possible, why you would, if you were on a very tight budget and it got you into an area that otherwise you wouldn't be, or and you were, for example, you said, no, well, I want a unit and I want to be within striking distance in this particular area. That's the compromise I might have to make.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Otherwise, it is something that wouldn't be viewed favourably in the market. No. Yeah, even with the one-bedroom apartments, the entry level, if you can find one with not pure ensuite, that would be viewed more favourably. So I hope that answers the question there, Fiona. And finally, Andrew from Vermont asked us, when I get a building and pest inspection back with a multitude of defects, what action should I take? How do I know which defects are potential money pits and which can be factored into our offering / bidding price? Yeah.
I mean, perfect example. I did this with my house a couple of years ago. We had our house as a rental and we decided to move back into it. I had money ready or saved up for potential works. I actually had a building and pest inspection done before we moved back in. And then I determined, okay, well, right, we had some rotted timber and wood. There was a leak in the roof. So long story short, we decided, okay, instead of renovating a kitchen or a bathroom, I just want to eliminate any water getting into the property, really, whether that's subfloor or on top of the roof. So we replaced the roof, sorted out the windows, replaced the rotted weatherboards, and actually gave it a coat of paint. And I mean, that's back to the question. We listed, okay, well, here are the what we must do straight away. There were a few things, for example, because this is an old period home that I'm talking about. A door that didn't lock close properly.
Yeah, you can live with that.
I can live with that. It's not a necessity. Yeah. It was more again about the moisture and water and fixing any rot that was to do with the house there. So
I think that the question was referred to a multitude of defects. So I know that when we're looking through building inspections that we commission for our clients before purchasing a property, sometimes they come back with page after page and it looks bad. But then when you break it down, you say, well, it's the same issue, which is very minor. So it might be the builder puts a torch up against the wall and you can see a little bit of a raised surface on the old plaster wall. Well, clearly there's been a plaster crack at some point that's been patched.
Yeah.
It could have been patched up last week. It could have been patched 10 years ago. Yeah. And it's a plaster crack. It's not a brickwork crack. But that could have been, oftentimes we find that that's noted in the hallway, the bedroom 1, bedroom 2, living room, dining room, and you've got the same issue, which is really, for all intents and purposes, a fairly minor issue, repeated a bunch of times. Yeah. Others can come back and your first glance at it is, this looks pretty good, because there's only maybe 2 or 3 issues. On closer inspection, well, one of them might be they've found either active or past termite activity. Yeah. That's something that we'd walk away from. So it's probably not the number of defects. It's the it's how serious they are, I suppose.
Yeah. Another one is damp, and sometimes
rising damp.
Yeah. And even if we're walking through a home and we see front to back paint deterioration and paint peeling throughout, we probably don't need to get a building inspection to determine that. But sometimes agents are very good at dressing up properties for sale, a quick internal paint, and it's hard to tell without getting one of these building reports that there are signs of moisture, and that doesn't always necessarily mean, in these old brick homes, for example, the fireplaces, they didn't have the proper damp-proof coursing.
So it's normal to find dampness around the old fireplaces, 120, 130-year-old fireplaces.
Yeah, but if it was front to back, that's probably something that we would walk away from.
Yeah, so. I tend to find that there's probably, I've sort of come to it, and I'm a bit of a broken record with our clients when we're looking at what to do with their properties that are immediately post-purchase or maybe 10 years after purchase. Well, do we need to fix up anything? It's always, to my view and experience, it's always water related. Yeah. So either water is coming in because the gutters, the roof, the downpipes aren't channeling water away to drainage properly, or it's coming into the roof space, or water is getting under the house. So water gets under the house, and then you've got a greater propensity for issues around subsidence to foundations, and this isn't something that happens overnight, but over 5 or 10 years. Rotting timber stumps or whatever it might be, mould, damp, rising damp, and then termites love that sort of an environment.
Those conditions,
those damp, moist conditions, subfloor, nice and dark, and the right sort of temperature. So if you can get if the items that you pop up in a building inspection are fixable, and particularly if they relate to water, sort that out, and you've not bulletproofed your property or your house, but you've gone damn close.
Yeah.
So
and I think people have to view those building reports as it gives you a baseline understanding of the current condition of your property, and as you mentioned, Jordan, like they can sometimes read like there's so many things there to do, but a little bit of rust on flashing and a downpipe with a leak in it, and it might be something to do with guttering as well. And a roof plumber can actually attend all of those three items, and it's then not such a big concern. Yeah, I'm not saying if the whole house needs a roof replacement, that's completely different to what I'm saying. But overall, you'll find that you could get probably 3 or 4 trades, and you could get them to action, I guess, all of those items, and then you won't be spending too much money. And as you said, then you'll have your house in tip-top shape as if it's an investment to be rented out, and then it's just about that ongoing yearly maintenance or checking just to make sure that things are still in order and your property's in good condition.
Yep. So again, hope that answers the question. That's probably enough for today. I've got a bunch of other questions, but that's probably covered a fair bit of ground. That's all for our episode 102. We've cracked the ton of rewarding property decisions. If you like our insights, please share our podcast with friends and family. Jared will be back next episode. Until then, all the best with your property decisions.